To start, I want to thank the fans. That was a great performance by our fan base in the Fargo Dome on Saturday. It was loud the entire game. They were into the game from start to finish, and that last drive when we were on defense for those few plays, it was as loud as it has been here that I can recall since the second time we played Georgia Southern. And so it made a huge impact for us on defense. And then obviously when Carson was having that last drive on offense, as quiet as it was an unbelievable crowd, and they were a big factor in us winning that football game. Hard-fought game with SDSU. Going back and looking at the film, a lot of things that we think we can maybe improve on and shore up, but in the same respect, they know us so well. They fit some things on defense, I thought, extremely well and changed some things up. And then their wrinkle with the Wildcat, I thought, was a really good job on their part. We were able to adjust to it the second half. And bottom line is we just made a couple plays at the end that were critical in that game. So survive and advance, like we talked about with the coaches, and I'll visit with the guys today about. The first time we'll see them is this afternoon. Survive and advance, and you got to turn the page no matter what. I don't care if you win 48-7 or 27-24. That one's done, and you've got to turn the page, and we've got to get focused on Coastal Carolina, who everybody knows a little bit about in here, but it's a year experienced group from last year. A number of guys have played here before, and I think that's a huge factor and probably a little bit of an advantage for them that they've been in here before to be in the Fargo Dome. But we've got to have a great game plan. So I'll open up for questions.
What kind of challenges does their quarterback, Alec Ross, present? Because he did start here last year, like you mentioned, too.
Well, he's a great dual-threat player, and he's an extremely experienced guy that can beat you with his arm, beat you with his legs. He understands their system so well. You know, because they're no huddle, it gives him ample time to see what you're lined up in defensively, and we've got to do a great job of disguising some things. But he's a really special player. He's player of the year in their league again this year.
Zach Braga playing Saturday?
I would say doubtful right now. I would say doubtful right now.
What is it? Problem?
Hamstring.
Do you do the 24-hour rule? I mean, is that a hard and fast rule for your philosophy?
Oh yeah, we enjoy it. Trust me, we enjoyed this Saturday night and a little bit on Sunday. But you know, our guy, it's neat because our guys were texting me on Saturday night saying, "Do we know a time of a game yet? Do we know if it's Friday? Do we know if it's Saturday?" They understand this playoff system, and so they were ready. And a number of guys I know came in and watched film yesterday on Coastal Carolina, and we obviously can push that out on Huddle, and so our guys were watching it on Huddle as well at home.
In your post-game conference on Saturday that you looked to RJ, Kerry, and Trevor, both guys stepping up. Is there any wide receivers that you would also like to step up in their place now?
Well, those three are the key because those guys are the ones they're kind of the next man in the lineup. But we've got to kind of see what this game plan presents to see what we need to do offensively, and we're just kind of digging into that. But those three are the ones that came to my mind.
Changed for Coastal from a year ago because you handled it pretty easily here last year, had your way offensively. Have they done anything different that you're able to see?
In our limited amount of film that we've looked at so far, they're just that much more experienced, Mike. I think all these kids are back from last year. They've got so many guys on defense back, up front, linebackers, corners. They've, you know, and I looked back at the game. We hit some explosive plays on them, but they did a really good job on our base offense and our base run game. And you know, I think they're going to play man coverage on us, which is probably the MO of what we've seen so far with those guys, and so and then offensively, this Ross is a special player. He's an extremely good player, and I know the running back's different, but this running back's got 1,400 or 1,500 yards as well and a bunch of touchdowns, and so the scheme is pretty much the same, but they're just executing at a high level.
You mentioned it there. You guys had some explosive plays last year against them. Do you see their defense kind of letting you guys to that again? Are you guys going to look at some wrinkles to be able to explode a little bit?
Well, you don't know. I mean, you know, we're going to run what we do, and we'll have some wrinkles here or there, but you know, we'll find out on Saturday if our guys make plays or they don't.
Any other injuries, Chris, that cropped up?
Lecompte's got a quad strain, but I think he'll be okay.
Coach, football's such a copycat sport. Does Coastal run any Wildcat, or would you maybe start preparing for a possible Wildcat?
Anytime you have a running quarterback, it's essentially Wildcat in my mind. I mean, you can look at Carson every time he carries the football. You could say it's Wildcat. But no, they haven't run any. I think just by us seeing the mistakes that we made on Saturday, we've got a pretty veteran group on defense that will be able to make that adjustment. But no, I know it's a copycat game, but if they're in Wildcat, then Ross doesn't have the ball in his hands, and I'd feel a lot better about that.
What's the challenge rule? Did you challenge like that tip pass? I mean,
Say that again?
What is the challenge rule?
Well, I asked that, and they were checking on that, and that's where, I know it all comes from above, but obviously it is a play that they can review. And all that is really, is it reviewable or is it not reviewable? And obviously that one is a reviewable play. There's really no challenges, so to speak, like the NFL where you can throw your rag out. You just kind of, all you're trying to do is buy some time so that the replay official upstairs who's looking at everything can stop play. And that's all everybody wants, is to be able to have that ability to stop the play so that they can look at the result. And
Did you do that on the tip passing? I mean,
I was yeah, we were just kind of talking and I asked, is this a reviewable play? And they just said, we'll find out. If we get buzzed, it is, and it sure as heck was, and we were fortunate.
Coach, it's the second time this year you're playing at 11 a.m. Can you use that same kind of routine used at Iowa State, or can you go back to last year?
We'll go back more to last year, Dom, simply because we were at Iowa State. And away game's a little bit different, but we'll use the same formula really that we used last year as far as our preparation, Monday through Friday, and then our Saturday morning will be the same. Yeah, obviously, the big thing is just everything's bumped up that much earlier. Our pregame, rather than being at 10:45 this week, will be at 7:15.
They kind of go three wide with a single back, but yet they're running the ball much more effectively than they are passing the ball. Can you talk about how you decide whether you're going to go nickel or try to keep three backers in, or how do you determine that?
Well, we're looking at that right now, Brian. That's a good question. We just had a lengthy conversation about that. They'll go three wide and two back quite a bit as well, or four wide and one back, and motion one of those wide receivers into the backfield to create the same look. And we've got to have the ability to play both. We've got to have the ability to get Carlton inside, which is what he would be in truly our nickel stuff, whereas he was outside more if we're in our base stuff, and that's something that we've got to look at. We'll have both of them in, but they're doing a great job running the football. They're blocking. A lot of linemen are back from last year. They're blocking really well. The back's hitting the hole well. The quarterback's making the right read on the read zone option. So they're clicking on all cylinders, and they really were on Saturday against Richmond running the football.
seemed like Saturday it was probably one of the more emotional games you've had in a long time. Are you looking for signs that indeed is put behind them? I mean, what do you look for?
From our team, I'm sorry?
Yeah, put that team behind you.
Well, it's an emotional game because it's a Valley game and it's the first playoff game after a bye week, and everybody knew the type of physical game it was going to be with South Dakota State. It is between our two programs all the time. We're fortunate we have so many veteran guys on this football team that will make sure these guys flip the page. Now, we're sore today, and so we won't probably go as long today, and maybe even cut it back a little bit tomorrow to get our guys fresh. The bottom line is we got to be fresh for Saturday because our kids know how to play in a playoff game. They understand the environment. It won't be too big for them. I just got to make sure and get them to kickoff as fresh as I can, also understanding what they have to do offensively and defensively. So to answer your question, I think we'll flip the page pretty quickly tonight once we get to our practice.
Is Coastal anywhere near as physical as South Dakota State or Northern Iowa from what you've been able to see? Do they play that physical style?
They can, but it's not two-back power. You know, it's more shotgun stuff as opposed to South Dakota State where they, going to get in the ball and come downhill on you more. These guys will come downhill, but they'll use the element of the perimeter. I think these guys do a tremendous job of making you play sideline to sideline. And if you want to keep everybody inside the hash, they'll throw 25 bubble passes if they have to. to get that perimeter stretched. And so this is a game where whether or not you're a corner to the field or the defensive end into the boundary, you're always in the fit. You're always in the play, because we've got to be able to do a great job defending this thing from sideline to sideline, because they're really talented on the edge.
So is this a game where you'd miss Travis then more than a game like South Dakota?
Absolutely. I mean, you're always going to miss Travis when you get a spread offense. You're always going to miss a guy like that has played 56 snaps of spread offense. But Carlton's another week into it at that position. Nick's another week into it. I think Demps gained some confidence this past weekend that we have the ability to utilize nickel a little bit more and put Champ back inside or back to the nickel spot. So that's why we're looking at doing both right now.
What do you think Coastal Carolina can do defensively that may cause problems for you guys?
They're going to do multiple fronts, I'm assuming. You're not going to line up in the same front all the time and let our big linemen target you. You're going to move some things. You're going to line up in a different front. You're going to pressure some. I'm sure they'll look at last year's game plan to see where we did have some success. And trust me, they did some really good things on defense to us last year as well. So they're going to see they're going to highlight the things that were successful, as well as maybe try to tweak some of the things that weren't. And that's where we've got to do a good job of not just looking at last year's game plan to decide, well, this has worked last year, it's going to work again. Well, they've got good coaches. They're going to make sure and shore that up. So we've got to come up with some new ideas on our offense as well. But make no mistake, we still have to be able to run the football. That's our number one goal, is we've got to be able to run the football and be successful in the trenches.
Coach, that throw by the game-winning play, that throw by Carson was a big-time throw. How much does he work on that, and what kind of influence maybe does Coach Hedberg have on that?
Oh, Randy's done an unbelievable job with Carson all year long. But Carson's an extremely confident young man throwing the football. And as I've said all year long, and you guys have realized it, the stage isn't too big for Carson. He's poised, he's calm, he's relaxed. That's just his demeanor. And then flip it around, he had all day to throw on that one. So I think our offensive line did a great job of protecting on that last drive. And then guys made plays, and we always talk about it. Big-time players make big plays in big games. And I told Marcus that for the 3 years I was here with him, and it's kind of spilled over to the whole football team. You've got to be a playmaker, and RJ is a playmaker, and he made big plays. Kerry Woods made a big play. We talk about Trey make a big play. The other thing I thought was so critical with the way that flow was going was when Trey made the interception, they had 3 timeouts left in 50 seconds, and you get 2 6'5" wide receivers and a quarterback that can zing it around. I said to Tim, we got to hammer. I don't care. We're going to hammer it to John 3 times, 4 times. We got to get a first down. Let's not just kneel on it, because we knew we couldn't run the clock out. And you watch John run the ball those 3 plays and our push up front. John was not going to be denied a first down on that last series.
Coach, how did Nick grade out from watching the tape for his first in a pressure situation like that?
I thought he graded out really well against a really good offense that did a lot of multiple things from a Wildcat that he hadn't played against. He'd practiced it a little bit from different games, but as well as different formations and different they shifted in motion. I thought he had an extremely good game, and I think he'll have confidence moving forward that his first start was at South Dakota. Not probably as big of environment or as big of a game as playing a game when you can't hear. No different than Demps making a big play. You know how hard that is. He's trying to figure out what we're in because he's looking for Heags or Duds to give him the signal of what the coverage is because it's so loud you can't talk. Nick's doing that, and he's communicating with our front. That's the thing that I was impressed with. I think we misaligned in the front one time the entire game, and that's Nick. Nick's the one that's lining those guys up, and we put an awful lot on those Mike linebackers. Grant Olson, you would take for granted of all the things he did. I think Nick misaligned our front one time, which is phenomenal for a true sophomore to make those calls in a big game like that.
Back to John for a second. How much credit does he deserve for how good this offense has been? It seems like he doesn't have a wow game. He still ends up with 100 yards on the stat sheet.
Yeah, he's really underrated running back in this league. We know how great the running backs are in this league, and John was a second-team all-conference. where in most leagues he would have been first team all conference and potentially a player of the year candidate. And take nothing away from the guys that were ahead of him on first team and the kid from Illinois State that was player of the year. They're all well deserving. But when we're really successful offensively, it all starts with John. And if it starts with John, it starts with the guys up front. And so John's had an unbelievable year and couldn't be happier for him.
Not only on the stat sheet is he big, but how big is he also, like, leadership-wise? He seems like he's on the sidelines a lot, rallying the troops.
Yeah, that's his personality. I mean, he's got an energy to him now and enthusiasm, and he doesn't let those guys get down. You know, even if we struggled like we did in the second quarter, he was continually trying to pump those guys up, say, this is playoff football. We've got to move the ball. We've got to find a way to get in the end zone. You know, when we were down by 4 on that last drive, John's like, we're going to get this done. So, great leader.
I saw you had Bison on the last kickoff. Is that something you're going to change up for this week? Because I know you had some struggles on kickoffs.
Well, part of that was I think Ben's quad, and I didn't know that until Tom went out there to kick it. And so moving forward, he'll be our guy to kick off until we learn more about Ben. And, you know, Barney's kicked in some games. We just got to get him a lot of work this week in practice.
Well, Tom can't go. Who punts then?
Well, Dudzik said he'd like to, but he'd fake it for sure. And so I don't know if I want to put Duds back there. Kyle Emanuel can punt. I mean, tell me something Kyle can't do, but he would be our backup punter.